So, have you ever noticed how we often approach major life shifts? Like they're a one-time instant fix.
Mm-hmm.
You land that dream job, move somewhere new, maybe just buy a new gadget, and for a second, it feels like everything's solved.
Yeah, that fleeting feeling.
But deep down, we kind of know, don't we? We instinctively know that real transformation, the stuff that lasts, takes time. It takes effort, consistency, grit.
Definitely.
Yet it's fascinating how we often bring that same instant fix idea to faith, expecting salvation to be just a single check the box moment and then we're done. Somehow complete.
And it's exactly that mindset, isn't it? That
Hmm.
can lead to some deep confusion. It's a core challenge our sources really grapple with.
How so?
Well, if you see salvation as only an event, a past transaction, you might hit a wall.
Yeah.
Maybe a breakthrough you're praying for is slow in coming, and you start thinking, am I doing something wrong? Is this disobedience?
Ah, okay. I see that.
Or you could swing the other way.
Hmm.
Just completely surrender your own part in it, thinking grace does all the heavy lifting without any, active participation from you.
Passive faith.
Exactly. And then there's the flip side, putting all the emphasis on human effort alone. That's just a fast track to burnout, legalism, and, well, guilt.
That makes sense. So, the mission for our deep dive today, then, is to unpack this powerful, maybe overlooked truth. Salvation isn't just a moment, not just a snapshot.
Right.
It's a dynamic, lifelong process. It's really a journey. So, we're going to explore what that actually means, why this perspective really matters for your life, and how embracing it can totally reshape how you experience faith, how it can lead to resilience, insight, and, genuine ongoing growth.
And for this deep dive, we've really dug into a stack of incredible sources, theological, practical writings. They beautifully map out what they call the theology of the journey, really helping us get our heads around salvation as process.
Sounds good. So get ready to maybe reframe some core ideas, maybe even see the story of grace in your own life a bit differently.
Let's dive in.
Okay, let's start by digging into that common assumption. Many of us, and I'll include myself here, often think of being saved as that single past event.
The testimony moment.
Exactly. We hear testimonies marking conversion by a specific date, a spiritual birthday. And look, that's valid, it's powerful.
Absolutely. It marks a beginning.
But the sources we've looked at argue that focusing only on that is like seeing the cover of an amazing book but never actually reading the pages inside.
That's a great way to put it. And what's so compelling when you really dig into the New Testament is how it paints this much richer, more layered picture.
More than just the cover.
Way more.
Yeah.
It shows salvation is both that moment of decisive entry and this continuous movement of growth.
Yeah.
If we boil it down to just a one-time transaction, we honestly forfeit so much.
Like what?
Well, the promise of ongoing intimacy with God, for one, and the actual power to become conformed to the image of his son, as Romans puts it. That transformation doesn't happen instantly at the doorway.
That distinction really lands. It reminds me of that analogy our sources use, comparing a wedding day to a marriage.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one.
The wedding day is singular, beautiful, decisive, a key moment.
Absolutely essential.
But a marriage, that's the lifelong journey, right? The dynamic process of growth, commitment, learning, changing together.
Day in, day out.
And the sources suggest that thinking salvation is only the doorway, only the wedding day, and not also the road, the marriage. Well, it misses the depth of what God's actually offering.
And this isn't just some abstract theological point either. It matters hugely right now. Think about the pressures on leaders, on professionals. Industry's changing so fast.
Constantly shifting.
Right. And our sources argue that people who grasp this process-oriented view of faith, they're positioned differently. They navigate change with more resilience, more insight. Plus, think about emerging generations. They crave authenticity,
Yeah.
ongoing transformation, not just formulas or ticking boxes. This dynamic view really speaks to that.
Okay, so if salvation is more than just that one moment, what does it actually look like in its fullness? Our sources lay out this really helpful three-part structure, a kind of triad.
Yeah, it's a framework that helps answer that key question. How do these pieces fit together? Because at the heart of Christian theology, there's this understanding of salvation as a divine process unfolding over time. It starts with justification.
The beginning of the journey.
Exactly, the beginning. This is God's decisive act. By pure grace, through faith in Jesus, a sinner is declared righteous. Romans 5.1 says it brings peace with God. It's the doorway into grace, the first breath of a new creation.
Okay.
Think of Israel crossing the Red Sea. Dramatic? Yes. Decisive deliverance from slavery. Absolutely.
A clear
A
event.
clear God-initiated event. But it wasn't the promised land yet, right? It was the start of the journey towards it. Justification is like that.
Mhm.
Initiated by God, a gift received.
So we step through that door. Then what? What's the process like?
Well, that leads right into the second part,
Yeah.
sanctification.
Yeah.
This is the journey in progress. Our sources call it the slow, sacred work of being made holy. It's the ongoing process where we're gradually shaped, conformed into the image of Christ. It's the refining fire, the daily rhythm of surrender and renewal.
It sounds active.
It is. Think Philippians 2.0, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Not for your salvation, not earning it,
Right, not earning.
but working it out, living it, embodying it as God empowers us. The Holy Spirit is our guide here through what the sources call the rugged terrain of valleys and summits. It's not always easy.
Doesn't sound like it. And the final destination, the end of this journey.
That's glorification, the journey's fulfillment. This is the final chapter, when Christ returns and we are raised imperishable.
Wow.
And it's not just about escaping earth. Revelation 21 talks about a restoration of all things. It's the fullness of salvation. Sin, death, sorrow, all gone. We're fully and finally like Christ. But until that day,
The journey continues.
the journey continues to unfold.
Yeah. You know, what makes this so compelling, for me anyway, is that it's not just a neat theological box. Our sources point out how the Apostle Paul talks about salvation in different tenses.
Yes, that's such a key insight.
He says, you have been saved. That's justification, right? Ephesians 2.8.
Past tense, done deal, declared righteous.
Then he says, you are being saved, sanctification, like 1 Corinthians 1.8, present, ongoing.
The process we're in right now.
And then you will be saved, glorification, Romans 5.9 to 10, future hope.
Absolutely. And it's not contradictory at all. It's layered. It shows salvation as both this definite divine act and this dynamic divine process happening over our whole lives and even beyond. It's incredibly holistic, isn't it?
It really is. It makes so much more sense of, well, of everything. This whole idea of salvation as a process, it really comes alive when you start thinking about it like a story or maybe a symphony with different movements.
Yeah, I like that symphony idea.
Our sources break down this journey into these distinct, though sometimes overlapping stages. And they emphasize growth isn't always straight line, is it? More like a spiral path.
That's such an important point. And connecting all these sources, one of the most powerful insights is how these stages provide this really helpful map, you could say. A framework for understanding how God's grace starts the whole thing and then faithfully sees it through the glorification. It dignifies every single step.
Okay, so what's the first movement? Where does it begin?
It often begins quietly. Stage one is awakening the stirring of longing. This is what theologians sometimes call prevenient grace.
Prevenient grace.
Yeah, it basically means God's grace that comes before we even recognize our need for him. It's his quiet, unseen work, drawing us near long before we even realize we are lost, like Jesus says in John 6.44.
So like a nudge.
Exactly. A holy restlessness, our sources call it, a discomfort with what once satisfied. Think of the Spirit brooding over the chaos, like in Genesis, creating these little sacred signals inside us.
Can you give some examples, like biblical ones?
Sure, think of Abram in Genesis 12, hearing a call before he even really knew who was calling. Or Cornelius in Acts 10, this devout Roman guy praying, being generous, before Peter even arrives with the full gospel message.
Okay.
And maybe the most famous, the prodigal son in Luke 15, coming to himself in the pigsty. That moment of clarity before he starts the journey home.
Right, right. And in real life today?
It could be anything, really.
Yeah.
A successful executive suddenly feeling this inexplicable emptiness despite having it all. A kid who wasn't raised in church getting curious about prayer. A woman going through grief, started to ask those big ultimate questions. These are those first subtle stirrings, the awakening.
Okay, so after that initial stirring, that nudge, what happens next?
That often leads into stage two, conviction, seeing with new eyes. This is where things start coming into focus. And it's crucial, as John 16 points out, this is about clarity, not condemnation.
Not about being beaten down by guilt.
No, not at all. It's more like the lights coming on. Sin stops being just mistakes or bad habits and starts being seen for what it is, a rupture against God, a breaking of relationship.
That sounds intense.
It can be. Think of Isaiah in the temple, overwhelmed by his own uncleanness in God's holy presence. Or the crowd at Pentecost in Acts 2, hearing Peter preach and being cut to the heart. They saw their need. Or maybe the woman in Luke 7, weeping at Jesus' feet. She knew she was seen, fully seen in her sin, but also welcomed. in our lives. It might be that moment a casual churchgoer suddenly hears the gospel message as if for the first time, as a personal call to them.
Or realizing a pattern like anger isn't just temper.
Exactly, but maybe it's rooted in control or fear or even making something else an idol in your life. That's conviction, seeing with new eyes.
And from seeing differently, we move towards doing something differently, towards a choice.
Precisely. Stage 3 is surrender the decisive.
Yes.
This is that pivotal moment of conversion, like Mark 1:15 talks about repentance and belief. It's where justifying grace is embraced and you're declared righteous by grace alone. The moment of entry.
The crossing of the Red Sea moment we talked about.
Yes.
Yes.
But here's a key point our sources make. Surrender isn't just a one-time kneeling at an altar. It's meant to become a lifelong rhythm of relinquishment.
A rhythm. I like it.
It's saying, Jesus, forgive me, absolutely. But it's also saying again and again, Jesus, lead me. Think of Peter dropping his nets in Luke 5. That was a radical reorientation of his whole life.
A definite yes.
Or Saul on the road to Damascus in Acts 9. That dramatic, who are you, Lord? Followed immediately by, what shall I do? That's surrender. And our sources even talk about different layers or stages of surrender happening throughout the journey.
Beyond the initial one.
Yeah, like relational surrender, learning to yield in difficult relationships. Or willful surrender, battling stubborn habits. Even root surrender, addressing those deep-seated fears or false beliefs. It's an ongoing yes.
Okay, so after that initial yes, that surrender, that's when the real work, the transformation, starts picking up steam.
Yes, that flows right into stage 4. Formation, the long work of becoming. This is sanctification in action. It's where God actively makes us righteous, conforming us to Christ's image, like Romans 12 and 2 Corinthians 3 talk about.
The shaping process.
Exactly. And our sources are clear. It's slow, often painful, deeply personal, and radically communal. It doesn't happen in isolation.
I like the analogy they use, peeling an onion.
It's a great picture, isn't it? Describing these layers of transformation. There's refining God, revealing things that need to go. There's renewing, retraining our minds, how we think. There's reordering our desires, slowly shifting, and restoring healing those deep wounds.
Can you give a real-world example?
Sure. Think of a businesswoman who was driven by productivity, her worth totally tied up in it. Formation might look like her slowly, painfully letting go of that idol, finding her value in God instead. Or a father may be quick to anger for years, gradually learning gentleness through conscious practice, prayer, and God's grace changing him from the inside out. That's formation.
Okay, but what about when it gets really hard? When the journey feels long, maybe you feel stuck or just tired.
That brings us to stage 5.
Yeah.
Perseverance, the grace to keep going. This is what our sources call the long middle of the Christian life.
The marathon part.
Exactly. Where faith gets tested, weariness sets in, maybe God's promises feel distant. Perseverance, though, isn't about mustering up spiritual adrenaline. It's described as faithfulness forged in friendship with God, and it's sustained purely by his grace.
So it's not about not struggling.
Not at all. Look at the Psalms of Lament. How long, O Lord? That's perseverance. Think of Peter stumbling even after being restored. Paul wrestling with his thorn, learning that God's power is made perfect in weakness. That's perseverance in our lives. It's the pastor faithfully serving a small, perhaps unseen congregation year after year. It's the mom singing hymns over her sick child at 3 a.m., calling it warfare and worship. It's the believer battling chronic illness whose inner fire somehow grows brighter because they have to depend solely on grace.
Wow.
And the profound message here from the sources is, struggle does not nullify salvation. It often affirms it. It proves you're still in the race. And spiritual maturity isn't measured by how often we fall, but by how often we get back up, how often we return.
That's really encouraging. And finally, the end game, the culmination.
The journey finds its ultimate fulfillment in stage 6. Glorification is the final chapter, the blessed hope, when we are fully and finally conformed to the image of Christ, free from sin, sorrow, and death, as 1 John 3 puts it, the ultimate transformation.
Absolutely. Titus 2 calls it the blessed hope, and it emphasizes not just our individual escape, but the resurrection body, the cosmic restoration of all things, every tear wiped away, every scar redeemed, every broken part made whole.
It's hard to even imagine. It is. But you can see glimmers of it now, can't you? An elderly saint facing death with deep peace, knowing resurrection is real. Maybe picturing a child with disabilities one day dancing completely free before God's throne. That's the hope of glorification, the complete restoration.
Okay, this whole journey, these stages, it sounds incredible, dynamic, But it's definitely not passive, is it? Our sources seem really clear there's an interplay here.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the key puzzles these sources really help clarify. What's God's part and what's our part? They consistently present salvation as this profound dance.
A dance.
Yeah, a dance between divine initiative, God always leads, and our human response. A sacred synergy. But they also warn about getting the steps wrong, falling into extremes.
What kind of extremes?
Well, on one side, there's passivity. The let go and let God idea taken too far, leading to complacency, maybe not taking responsibility for growth.
Just waiting for God to zap you.
Pretty much. Then on the other side, there's striving, the it's all up to me mentality, which, as we said, just leads to exhaustion, feeling like you have to earn God's favor, maybe becoming rigid or legalistic.
So how do we find the balance?
Dallas Willard, who our sources quote quite a bit, has this brilliant insight. Grace is not opposed to effort. It is opposed to earning.
Ah, that's key. Grace isn't opposed to effort, but to earning.
Exactly. Our effort, our choices, our disciplines, they're our response to the grace God has already given. We're cooperating with him, not competing with him. We're trying to pay him back.
That clarifies so much. It's not either, but a beautiful both hand.
It really is. Think of that sailboat analogy again. God provides the wind. That's his grace, his power, his initiative.
Can't sail without wind.
Nope. But you have to hoist the sails, position them to catch the wind. That's your agency, your act of cooperation, your choices. No wind, no movement, no sail, no direction. Both are required. It's that dynamic dance.
And this dance, this journey, it's not always smooth sailing, is it? What are some of the bumps in the road, the pitfalls our sources mention?
You're right. It's rarely a straight, easy path. Our sources point out several common challenges. One big one is confusing delay with disobedience.
I can see that happen.
Yeah, you feel stuck, things aren't changing as fast as you'd like, and you assume you must be doing something wrong or God's displeased.
Yeah.
But what looks like stagnation might actually be, as the sources say, deeper, quieter work of grace happening beneath the surface.
Like preparation.
Exactly. Think of Moses' 40 years in Midian. That wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Or Joseph in prison character formation happening in the pit. It wasn't divine abandonment, it was purposeful delay.
That's a helpful perspective. What else?
Another pitfall is expecting perfectly linear progress. We touched on this. Growth is usually spiral, not straight.
Revisiting old issues.
Yeah, often from a new perspective, with deeper understanding or for deeper healing. Look at Peter. Even after Jesus restored him, Paul had to correct him later on. It shows the ongoing nature of formation. We don't just arrive.
And how we interpret struggles matters too, right?
Hugely. There's the danger of over-spiritualizing everything, blaming every difficulty on demons, when maybe it's just burnout or lack of sleep.
Or practical issues.
Right. But then there's the opposite danger of under-spiritualizing, ignoring the reality that we are in a spiritual battle, and some struggles do have spiritual roots. Discernment is so key.
Finding that balance.
And finally, there's the constant tension of misapplying grace or agency, falling into cheap grace, using grace as an excuse to coast, versus that rigid legalism trying to earn God's love through sheer effort. The sweet spot is always that responsive cooperation with the Spirit.
You know, this whole process view, it really seems reflected in how Jesus himself interacted with people. He didn't seem to offer many instant fixes.
That's such an insightful observation. Our sources definitely highlight that Jesus modeled this process-oriented ministry. He consistently valued transformation over quick fixes.
Can you give an example?
Well, think about Nicodemus in John 3. This educated leader comes to Jesus at night. Jesus doesn't give him a simple three-step plan.
No, he talks in riddles, almost. Born again, wind blowing.
Exactly. He initiates a process, speaks in metaphor, stretches Nicodemus' thinking, and Nicodemus starts in darkness, confused, but we see him later, right? Tentatively defending Jesus, then boldly helping bury him. Jesus allows room for unfinished stories.
That's beautiful. What about the Samaritan woman?
Oh, she's a fantastic example from John 4. Jesus meets her right where she is at her point of thirst, her point of shame. He gently, carefully uncovers her story, not to condemn her, but to heal and invite her in.
It's a gradual conversation.
It is. Her transformation is this progressive revelation. She moves from just curiosity to insight about her own life, to glimmers of hope, to confession, and finally to becoming this powerful witness inviting her whole town. And notice, Jesus doesn't guilt trip her or force a confession. It's just grace inviting truth, step by step.
And Peter, he's maybe the ultimate example of messing up and being brought back.
Absolutely. Peter's journey, described as bravado to brokenness to boldness, is central. Think about his denial. so public, so painful. But how does Jesus restore him in John 21?
Not with punishment.
No. With gentle questions, do you love me? And then immediate recommissioning, feed my sheep. It shows that failure doesn't disqualify you. In fact, it often initiates deeper formation. It breaks down pride and prepares you for real, humble service.
It seems this process idea was core to Jesus' teaching too.
Definitely. Think about his parables. The potter shaping the clay, that's Jeremiah, but Jesus embodied it. The kingdom growing like a tiny seed, slowly, almost invisibly, that's Mark 4. It points to growth being hidden, organic, taking time. And Luke even tells us that Jesus himself grew in wisdom and stature. Even the Son of God experienced process.
Okay, this deep dive has been fascinating, shifting perspective. But it's not just theory, right? It has to land in our actual lives. What does it mean for you, listening right now, to live this theology of the journey day to day?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? How do we apply this vision of salvation as a process? Well, first, it fundamentally means redefining spiritual growth.
How so?
If God is still completing his good work in you, then growth isn't measured by achieving perfection now. It's measured by progress, by faithfulness in the process. Those unfinished places in your life, the anxiety, the addiction, the anger, whatever it is.
The things we beat ourselves up about.
Exactly. They aren't necessarily signs that God has abandoned you or that you're failing. Our sources suggest they're often evidence of the ongoing presence of God. Places where he is still actively working. You're a canvas, he is still painting. That should bring immense freedom from pressure.
Freedom from perfectionism. Okay, what else?
It also implies discipleship as lifelong formation and accompaniment for churches, for mentors, for all of us in community. It means teaching process, not just performance. It means walking with people through their messes and growth spurts, rather than expecting instant, tidy transformations.
Being spiritual gardeners.
I love that.
Yeah.
Spiritual gardeners,
Like-
cultivating soil, watering growth, patiently tending the process.
And this extends into faith in the workplace and public life. If salvation is ongoing, then its fruit shows up in how you lead, how you speak, how you serve, wherever you are.
Not just on Sunday morning. Not at all. You're being saved to become a redemptive presence on earth. An agent of his restoration right there in your office, your classroom, your neighborhood, your boardroom. Your daily life is the context in which he completes his work in you.
And what about spiritual disciplines? Prayer, Bible study, all that. How do they fit in?
Great question. Our sources emphasize seeing spiritual disciplines as vessels of grace. They aren't ways to earn God's favor or brownie points.
Not a checklist to impress God.
Definitely not. They are, as the sources say, trenches of transformation, vessels of grace. They're the practical ways we open ourselves up, create space, and cooperate with the heart renovation God wants to do. Dallas Willard said, grace must be arranged as the power underlying our action. Disciplines arrange our lives to receive that power.
Okay, this is all incredibly helpful. But how can someone listening right now start to sort of map their own journey, make it personal?
Yeah, making it concrete is important. The sources offer some really practical tools for self-reflection. One is the idea of creating your own salvation timeline.
Like key dates?
Not just the big conversion date, but mapping your story by identifying what the sources call micro-decisions. Those smaller yet intentional moments of surrender, or steps of growth, or times you chose deeper following. Maybe forgiving someone, or finally addressing that anxiety, or trusting God through a tough illness.
Recognizing those smaller steps.
Exactly. It honors both God's consistent leading and your real active responses along the way. Another helpful tool is doing a kind of spiritual pace assessment.
What does that involve?
It's about honestly rating yourself on things like your awareness of God's presence day to day, your current willingness to surrender specific areas, the consistency of spiritual growth you're seeing, even if slow, and your connection to a supportive Christian community.
Checking in with yourself.
Right. It helps you discern where God might be actively working and empowering you, where he might be inviting you to yield more deeply, or even if you might be falling into that trap of confusing his timing, his delay, with disobedience. The goal is always to try and align your steps with God's timing and purpose, knowing your journey is unique.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up. This deep dive has really painted a picture of salvation, not as some static past event, but as this incredible unfinished symphony.
I like that.
A magnificent story still being composed by God himself.
Oh.
From that very first whisper of prevenient grace that initial stirring.
All the way to the ultimate glorification.
Every stage, every struggle, every small choice along the way, it all matters. It's part of this dynamic masterpiece.
And the enduring promise in all this is just so liberating, isn't it? You're not merely saved in the past, you're being saved right now. This whole perspective frees us from that awful tyranny of performance and perfectionism.
Yeah.
Our sources kept bringing us back to Philippians 1.6, that amazing promise. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus.
Yeah.
He finishes what he starts.
He finishes the symphony. So here's a final thought for you to mull over, something provocative perhaps. If your life truly is God's ongoing masterpiece, his unfinished symphony, what unseen brushstroke might he be applying today? Even in something that feels totally mundane, or maybe really challenging. What small thing might he be doing right now to bring forth the unique glory he intends for you? And maybe ask yourself, what one small act of courageous obedience could be your next micro-decision? Your next note in the symphony, participating more fully in the unfolding grace of your salvation.